Running Sentences presents One Dead Man, Part 5, The Scream. With the new plan, Nate intends to escape, though Charles isn't sold on this idea, and things go about as well as they expect them to. This story is written and narrated by Michael Henry. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within the story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events is purely coincidental. Copyright 2026, Michael Henry. All rights reserved. Charles hadn't moved from his spot in the back alleyway behind the garage that held the potential shark of the tier leader. He stood there watching his friend, maybe so-called friend, who abandoned him to escape all by himself. He was unable to decide what he wanted to do or think about other than betrayal.
Ah, shit.
The voice of Nate, who'd just gone around the corner, came back sharply, and a bit scared. There was a moment's pause from Charles as he tried to figure out what he wanted to do. His friend had said split up, but he was just down the road. The door had already banged open, and out spilled the sergeant and corporal looking about. Charles pointed off towards the direction that Nate had gone. He went that way and then screamed. "Why aren't you with him?" Sergeant York asked. "He wanted to go search that way and told me to wait here," Charles explained. "That doesn't sound like something he would say, Mr. Charles." "I don't know what to tell you other than he went that way, Corporal. Believe me or not, your choice. I don't think you know him well enough to say anything, though." With a shake of her head, the sergeant grabbed Charles's arm and began pulling him towards the new shriek coming from that direction.
Oh, good fucking God, what the fuck?
Nate stood there, staring at a grotesque-looking remains of what was possibly a human being. Well, it was a fat person, judging from the blubber that was spilling out from the crevices and onto the broken pavement around there. There was nowhere for it to go, though, in this dead-end alleyway, and Nate was busy trying to look anywhere else, just so that he didn't throw up. When the welcome sound of footsteps came, he could turn and look that way. Not that it was much better with the amount of blood all around the walls here. "What has happened?"
Body!
"What do you mean? Nate, explain yourself on what's going on around here. We need more information. Stat!" Nate looked at the corporal and then decided that standing to the side was his best option. Both the sergeant and corporal froze up the moment they caught sight of things. "What's going on?" Charles asked.
Death and destruction, Charles.
"That isn't really an answer, Nate."
"I found a fucking body of a fat man who I'm going to go out on a wild fucking limb, and I guess is supposed to look like the person that we've been running into, but who knows?"
"Shit."
"Yes, shit, Charles, shit."
The corporal then marched over to Nate as he said this, grabbing him and pulling him behind his back.
"You are under arrest." "For what, Corporal? I didn't do anything, and this mess would take more than a few minutes that I've had out here to accomplish anything."
"Murder," the corporal insisted.
"Sergeant, get your corporal under control. You know I can't have done this. Charles, say something."
Charles stared blankly for a moment and then turned to the sergeant. "Oh, well, you've got your person who might be responsible for all of this. Am I free to go?"
"What? Charles, you can't abandon me."
Miss Sergeant York looked over to Charles and shook her head no. "Sorry, you cannot leave." "Well, I figured as much. Take us away somewhere, I guess." Morning, afternoon, and then evening had rolled by for Charles. He'd been put into a tent that had as simple accommodations of a sleeping bag and nothing else.
The sound of boots treading on soft ground outside told him it was likely an army base camp established on the island, and that he was now a prisoner. No one had told him as much, but that's what he figured it was. There really wasn't enough room to stand up in this tent, so he sat cross-legged for a couple of hours
as hunger began to catch up to him again.
He growled at the thought of having some nice food as the tent flap opened up with an unfamiliar-looking man marching in. More of a stroll than a march. And the look from the man, which was a dressed-down look, made him to be someone of sort of power, who had a lot of power for his casual appearance. Hello? Hi?
Charles responded and looked confused at the man.
Listen, I'm going to make this quick and easy for you. What do you know? Very little, sir. I'm going to guess you're referring to the whole island situation, right? You could say that, yes, but we won't say that for the sake of things being on the record and off of it. Best not to say some stuff that will get me in trouble. Then you sound like a person I don't want to talk to. Quite the opposite, I must say. I'm the person who will help you out of all of this, if you help me with all of this. The man wasn't tall, and like Charles, had to crouch while standing in this tent. There was a bit of a jerky motion with him, and not like his body was responding to his commands he was giving to it, but late, or maybe too early. The whole sight gave off an eerie feeling to it. Well, you should talk to Nate, not me. I have nothing to do with all of this.
Charles replied with a shrug.
Oh, I already have, sir. Then why come here? I can't provide you with any more information. Nate knows it all anyway. You took the room that I saved for you at the hotel.
This man replied with a smirk.
The words were whispered but loud enough for Charles to hear them and jerk his head up to stare at the man. He turned away with his jerky motion had become too much. It was about 2 seconds into this whole conversation. What was that? I didn't hear properly,
Charles said.
You're in a deep mess, and I can get you out. Your friend took my offer, and now it is time to make you that same offer. Great, I would love to hear it. What is it? It was not, in fact, love to hear it, and suspected that the man was, in fact, lying, but for now he was going to amuse this weirdo so that he could tell on him later. Say you committed the crime, and I will get you off the hook for said crime. Admit guilt to some sort of crime that I know nothing about? Yes, then you'll get away scot-free. What am I admitting to exactly? Doing away with the man who has been, mysteriously disappearing, who may or may not be our dear leader. What else would I be talking about? After all, you did do it. Taking a hard look at the man, Charles wondered what exactly was wrong with him. Pretty sure he'd seen him before, but not sure when or where. Just had that look of familiarity, he guessed, but that didn't make him feel comfortable. I will tell you I've done nothing of the sort, so no,
Charles told him.
You can make your whole life easier if you just say you did. No one will be mad at you. I'm pretty sure there would be a whole lot of people mad at me for doing such a thing.
After all, people don't like criminals. It's a crime.
I didn't do. Are we being listened to by some listening device and you're trying to extract some sort of confession to me and that's why you're worried about things? It won't work since I did nothing and I have no part in any of what's happened other than maybe I found a body or I found someone who looks like the body. Oh, yes, and what exactly has happened, Mr. Charles? As far as I'm aware, someone on the island has disappeared. Maybe the dear leader, maybe not. Who happens to look like our dear leader anyway? I don't know anything more than that. Are you sure? You've been seen around a lot of bodies and shirts that our dear leader loves to wear many times. Having had enough of this stupid conversation, Charles went quiet. He crossed his arms and went as stony-faced as he could and just sat there. This man wasn't going to listen to him, so he was just going to sit here and wait it out. If that meant he was taken away, so be it. At least it would get him away from this fucking cursed island. It took a few more minutes and some other questions, which Charles did not listen to, or answer before the man gave up with a shrug and exited. Nate could not get the sight out of his head. All the bubbling fat and that just sat on the ground and strips of flesh-looking stuff. It made him want to vomit again. He'd been doing that a lot lately, despite some doctor coming in and telling him to stop doing that. Now, though, he was alone in the tent, his tent, that had some guards out front and only a sleeping bag to keep him company. He'd wrapped himself up in that to get rid of all the sickly thoughts, but those weren't going away and sleep wasn't coming. A flap of his tent suddenly opened, and a weird man with lots of quirky, jerky movements stepped inside. He grinned at Nate, which reminded him of the body which looked like it had a smile cut into it. The feeling and the need to vomit was coming back quickly.
Hello, Mr. Nate. I'm here to make you an offer. Excuse me, but I think you should leave, sir. I think I'm going to be sick. And it wouldn't be nice if I somehow managed to get it all over you.
The smile on this man vanished as Nate clamped a hand over his mouth to stop himself. The man, though, was already quick and out of the tent, and away, much to his relief, which stopped the feeling and need to vomit. Nate and Charles were woken early the next morning and brought before a nice-smelling tent. The scent of freshly cooked food kept coming and coming, but they were forced to stand out there in the morning sun with their bodyguards by their sides. All the while, the rest of the camp, which was on a green, grassy field, went by for their breakfast.
This isn't nice.
Why, you should be fine by now, shouldn't you? Getting things done on your side and all that after you betraying me?
Charles said, looking straight ahead and not at his friend.
I still feel sick from the sights I saw yesterday. I've had no time to do anything.
Well, that sucks for you. I didn't even think about them. Guess you'll get to be sick with them for the rest of your life, once you're taken away. Nate was doing his best to keep up, his mind still catching up, and whirling on those images from before, and not catching all that was being said by his friend, all thanks to those sorts of images popping back into his mind, then out, and then back again. But he'd finally heard what Charles was saying. He thought he'd done something to him?
What are you saying? You sound like you're accusing me of something, Charles.
You did do something.
What did I do?
Betray me?
How would I have done that?
Charles shot Nate a look of really, but he didn't understand what he'd done wrong. Was it something he'd said? They'd been standing quietly for a couple of hours, maybe an hour or so it didn't really make much sense.
Nate puzzled as he thought it over.
You made a choice, and now you can live with it.
I don't understand.
Take your time and think about it, Nate. I don't want to talk to you. About to say something else, Nate was saved by Sergeant York marching up to them with a serious expression on her face. Mr. Nate, you ought to follow me at once.
What is this about, Sergeant?
The man who visited you last night wishes to continue your conversation now that you're feeling better.
Which you are feeling better, right?
A bit, yes. Not a guarantee since that scene keeps popping into my head.
Well, that is not my problem. Follow me through to the tent over here and your conversation with him will begin,
the sergeant ordered.
She turned to march away off towards the direction she was pointing. Nate, though, was slow to follow, turning his friend to Charles, who stood there, shaking his head in disappointment.
What is wrong?
Nothing. Go to your new master and find yourself a fresh new hell.
It sounds like you know something and aren't telling me.
I don't know anything.
And we aren't working and helping each other out anymore. Remember? That was your request, to split up.
I meant that we get away, huh?
And now you're going to do that by going to talk to that man. Goodbye.
Hurry up, Mr. Nate. You don't want to be late for your date.
We need to talk after this, Charles.
But Charles merely shrugged at him as he hurried off towards the tent, following the sergeant's lead. It was still bothering him, though, and he kept worriedly looking back at his friend. It didn't feel right, but there was nothing to say that would easily remedy the situation and make it better. Plus, he had in fact told his friend to go his separate way, though this felt sort of more personal. With a sigh, he entered the tent. He was shown into this larger tent, unlike his prison one, where he couldn't stand up. This one had some amenities, namely a long table at which the man from last night sat at. Sergeant York had not gone in with him, and the only other person in the space was the other man from last night who grinned at him, the smell of food coming from the plate in front of him.
Mr. Nate, it is good to see you looking better. I don't know you. You will. I wanted to talk to you about events that have transpired recently. Standing there unsure of himself and what he should be doing or saying anything, or something, Nate grimaced. The last thing he wanted to do was talk about events from last night. He'd already talked to a lot of different military people, and it had only gotten him here and sick, which was nowhere, and most certainly not off this island and away from this meth. I told everyone I know what I know. I'm sure you did, but I have an offer to get you off of the island, which I'm sure you really want, and I can see by your expression that is exactly what you want. The thought of getting away had brightened Nate's day, but show it on his face? He could have sworn he was keeping the same sort of expression he always did, a slightly sour but happy one, when he saw something that he liked. What exactly is your offer? You do as I say, and you get to go home, the man said. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of an offer. What's the catch? What exactly would I be doing for you, Mr. Whoever you are? The grin on the man's face grew as he pushed the plate of food in front of him over towards the other side of the table. It was now closer to Nate, and he could smell it much easier. Let me start by saying my name is Gino, and this plate of food is actually here for you. Please take a seat so I can tell you all about what I want. Yes, so we are clear. All I'm doing is listening right now, okay? Oh, yes, Mr. Nate, that is fine by me. In fact, I would not have it any other way. Listen away. Nate eyed the man as he moved over to sit down. There was nothing to really like about any of this. It was, however, a potential way out of here, and he didn't really have control of the situation, so maybe it was worth listening to. Talk away, mister. I need someone to step in and announce they're responsible for all that has happened here. Opening his mouth to yelp in protest, Nate found that Gino had put his hand up to silence him before he got too far. And before you speak, let me fully explain. You take the fall, and as a result, you get off the island. Then once everything settles down, I get you off the hook, everyone ignores you, and blah blah blah, so on and so forth. No, I will not go along with that. Why not? It is a perfect plan, isn't it, Mr. Nate? I don't know when everything will settle down, do I? From the sound of it, things might never or will never settle down, and for something I didn't do? Yeah, no, this sounds like a horrible deal. The man ruefully shook his head no in sadness at him. It made Nate want to stand up and leave, though he probably wasn't going to be allowed to do that. It is the best deal you will get. Your friend was quick to dismiss all of this, but it is your only way out of here. Oh, otherwise what? I leave in a body bag or something like that? For something I didn't do? We need someone to blame, and once you're in the system, it will be easier to get you out. So, yes. Turn yourself in, or wind up maybe in a body bag. No, I won't. Okay, walk out of here and see what happens to you. I can give you a very big hint that you'll be in the system, and no way to escape unless you have my blessing. So, my way or the highway? I wouldn't take your way if it paid $1 million. And why is that, Mr. Nate? Nate grimaced as he shook his head at his own thoughts. This was going to sound stupid, and it was in the face of a dumb thing to do and say.
As I said, there will be no escape for me, unless you have a way to ensure that I will disappear on a date and a certain time that you will tell me. So I can't take your deal. Also, I didn't commit whatever it is that is going on.
But you admit that something is going on, don't you?
There's at least some proof you're involved. No, it doesn't, Mr. Gino. Otherwise, you'd have arrested the whole island, and you don't want to do that.
Well, I don't. That made Nate freeze up for a second. This man, who he was sure was some sort of rich and powerful dude, probably could do that. But why would he want to? It just didn't add up for him as to what he might gain from all of this.
You do you. I don't take your offer,
Nate growled. Rising from his seat, Nate turned to head out of the tent. He expected for this Gino to call out and try and stop him, but no, there was nothing from him. Stepping out into the bright, late morning sun, Nate shielded his eyes to look about. Sergeant York was a few paces off, standing with the Major, and both looked in his direction when he stepped out. Not waiting to see what they were going to do, he walked over to them.
My conversation is complete, and now I should go back to my tent, I guess, to decide what's done with me next.
There's a situation, so we will hold off on that for now.
There's a what now, Mr. Major?
Your friend Charles has vanished. Not really vanished per se, Sergeant, but taken, we think, the Major said. Nate's eyebrows knitted together in confusion at all of this. What were they saying? Why were they saying this?
Okay, so what do you need from me? Or do you need something from me?
Nate asked. Why would someone want to take him?
I don't know, Sergeant.
Where might they go if your friend is a part of this? Major Kilroy then asked. Nate took a second, processed that question. He hadn't thought of his friend as like that, but it could potentially be true that he'd been betrayed?
I hate to repeat myself, but I don't know. You and your military group should go find him, though.
Why should we do that?
Well, he's pretty smart, so if you want to get off the island, he could, Sergeant. I mean, the man I was just talking to was offering me such a thing.
The two, the Major and the Sergeant, were intently studying him, and now looked even more intently at him. The Sergeant grabbed at his arm with a rather fierce grip that would not under any circumstances let go. He even winced a bit in pain as his arm throbbed from the suddenness that pinched it and made it feel like there was a bit of blood being cut off from flowing. Mr. Gino offered what to you? The Major asked.
Yes, though he said I would have to admit to a crime of doing something. I think he means in relation to whoever that guy is that has the body, maybe somebody important, I don't know, whatever happened to him. I have nothing to do with that, but he offered to get me off the island.
That is very strange, Sergeant York offered. And right after Mr. Knight gets taken to visit him, Charles disappears. Rather sudden and strange coincidence, if I do say so, Major Kilroy added on. We aren't the police, though, Major, so is this concern ours, or isn't it? You're right about that, Sergeant, but we can still look into matters, just to make sure that we aren't being messed with, and that means we need your help, Mr. Nate.
Really, you should go talk to that Gino guy. He had answers, or pretended to have answers anyway. Who is he, by the way? I feel like he's familiar.
A rich man who talks and has dealings with our dear leader, Sergeant York said.
Well, I know nothing about them, so whatever you say, I guess, is the truth, Sergeant.
The Sergeant began pulling him away, off towards the side. I will take him around town, Major, to figure out some of what is going on and see if we can't find Charles. The Major merely nodded, and away they went. The sergeant had corralled 3 other troopers to keep him guarded and stuffed the whole lot of them into a 4-door troop transport, a 4-wheeled truck that was all metal and little comfort to be found.
Nate found himself stuck in the middle between two soldiers while one of the new ones was driving and York was riding shotgun. All in all, a rather miserable experience to be having.
What are we doing?
Looking for your friend. What else would we be doing, Nate?
I don't know. I haven't exactly been filled in on what plan is.
We're going to look for anything to give us a hint about what's going on, and especially about your friend. He somehow doubted they would find him, and chose not to respond since it probably would just get him yelled at. No, looking out the window and pretending to help would be a much better use of his time. But as he looked to the soldier at his left, he realized something and quickly turned to his right, and then to the driver. None of them were Bruce.
Sergeant, where is this Corporal Bruce? Wasn't he assigned to be our tail?
There was a slow turn from her in her seat to look at him. She didn't have a concerned look on her face, but seemed to be thinking about it.
He wasn't around.
And you don't think that's weird?
You do? The sergeant replied.
My friend gets taken and the person who's supposed to look after us vanishes as well? That is odd. Why would a soldier dedicated to his unit suddenly disappear?
Well, it is weird, but not unusual to not be around. If there is a task, troops often find a way to make themselves scarce.
You ordered him to watch over us, though, and didn't put an end period on that task. Shouldn't he be around?
Are you trying to say that he's responsible?
I'm saying that he's been pulled into this mess deeper than we think. Why else wouldn't he be here?
Yeah, I hate to say something, Sarge, but dude has a point.
Be quiet, Private. This doesn't need any more voices added to the mayhem. We're supposed to be on the lookout and searching, not discussing other troops. Keep a lookout, and Mr. Nate, keep your mouth shut unless you spot something good, okay?
Nate did not want to agree to that. He quickly figured, though, that since he didn't have any weapons, it would be a bad idea to resist or talk unless talked to. Plus, one of the soldiers at his side was now staring at him in a sort of shut-up way that left little doubt about all of this. To make matters worse, though, his seat was in the middle. He really couldn't see shit. The feeling of rocking back and forth awoke Charles to a dark room. His hands and feet were tied, and there was a pain coming from all over his body. Where it was located was hard to tell, just that it was there. What the fuck? His voice did sound right and caused him to wince as more pain came from the effort to talk. As he blinked, the space, which was fairly dark, came into more focus, with wooden sloped walls that curved inward. Anyone there? Shut up. Hello? I said shut up. Don't you listen when giving orders? No, Charles responded, and then said, Where are you and who are you? I demand to know since you truss me up like this some sort of prisoner. Where are the military and why did they do this to me? You don't have any say in the matter, so shut up, his captor said. What? I'm not asking for a say, I'm asking for knowledge. You don't get that either. There was the sound of approaching footsteps that stopped once they were close by. A second later, and rather predictably, one of those footsteps crashed into his right side, sending another sharp pain through him. What the fuck? He gasped after collecting himself for a few seconds. I've been told you're the reason we're in so much trouble right now, so you get fair punishment. I have not done anything, sir, Charles replied. Not what I've heard. Now shut up and don't speak unless someone comes and gets you. The vehicle had rumbled to a stop at a familiar-looking beach for Nate. It was the one, he was pretty sure, where he and Charles had found that cave to hide out at and swim into the other cavern. There was a little doubt about that, since it was dark and they'd sort of been in a hurry to get away from everything. It felt the same, though, and now with 4 soldiers all around him, it felt like he was being led to an execution and he should stop thinking about prior events. Why did we stop here, Sergeant?
To take a look around. You and your friend were spotted here one night and then disappeared. So why not vanish here again?
'Cause he would be smart enough to know that you'd think of that. He's not going to visit the same spot. And besides, I don't think that he would actually leave. Just show us how you got around, alright?
One of the soldiers demanded.
That one isn't a very friendly soldier.
We're not here to be friendly. Your friend escaped, and lots of crime going on. We want it to end. Yeah, we just want this wild ride to end.
Another soldier joined in.
I'm not sure I can end it, soldiers. I don't know where Charles is or where he'll be hiding. But I'm sure the cave over there by the beach is the one you're thinking of looking for.
Then let's go over there. Lead the way, Mr. Nate.
Why? If it is the cave you want, you'll find a waterway space that goes underground to another cave. If Charles is anywhere, he might be over there.
But you doubt it? A soldier interjected.
Well, it doesn't make much sense for him to be here. Why would he be? He would turn himself in, soldier.
Why would he do that?
The sergeant asked.
Because that's just how he is, Sergeant.
The soldiers didn't look like they were buying his argument, and he merely stomped off down the beach. It took them a little bit to find the right cave. As it turned out, there were a couple of them. Nate found himself standing above the pool of water that was much shallower than it had been that night.
Right, this is the one I think. Now you can follow that to the other cave.
As he said these words, he turned, since there was no response, and he'd expected to see guns pointed at him, something dangerous, him being executed, anything. Instead, as he turned, he found himself all alone, with no signs of anyone, even at the brightly lit entrance of the cave. End of part 5 of One Dead Man. Thank you for listening.